I weaseled my way in the door here. I really was excited about coming to this practice. I grew up nearby and I had driven past it several times. And so I had a friend from high school who was working in the front office. He hooked me up with Megan. Megan hooked me up with Greg, and I had an interview with Greg, and he said, okay, we don't normally take on students, but you seem really excited, really invested. And I said, I am. And so I went for it. And I started my internship here at Mindfully. And my second day, I was in a DBT team meeting, and I thought, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? And it was great. I think getting that experience on the DBT team right away was so good for me. It really helped shape who I am as a clinician now. I say to people, well, I've been doing DBT for 4 years. Well, how's that possible? You've only been a licensed clinician for 2. Oh, well, I did it for 2 years as an intern. So I have that experience right away. Everybody on the DBT team treated me like I was equal. I never felt like I was just the intern. And that really has shaped how I try to treat our interns now. How I handle having someone sit in on my sessions, or if people have questions, I felt like the leadership of the practice was always accessible to me. I mean, I met Charles in that DBT team meeting, and I got to know them as human beings rather than as my bosses. And so now I think that really shapes how I interact with them currently. I'm not afraid to speak up and say, I'm not sure about that thing, or I've got this idea. What if we tried it? And they're really open and receptive to it. And I've gotten to know them as those people that want to hear my ideas, that want to include people who might not have as much clinical experience into clinical decisions. That's a big part of why I stayed here after my internship. I think I got into DBT really heavily because on the very first day that I interviewed with Greg, I got a phone call with bad news later that day. Almost right after I hung up with Greg, and a friend of mine had died by suicide. And I said to myself, I want to work with clients who are struggling with this sort of thing. I want to be able to help somebody else's friend find hope. I want to do this hard work. I know it's hard work. I want to make a difference. I don't want to be leaving anything on the table. And so I really got into DBT right away. And my very first client, I had them in DBT for a while. And my very first client was a trans woman. And I just thought, man, she is so cool and so interesting. And we got to keep her here. And so I really right away fell in love with DBT and with treating clients who some clinicians might be afraid to work with, because it is hard when somebody is struggling like that and wanting to end their own life. And you have to really have some strong support. You have to have a strong framework, which DBT is. I got super into nerding out about learning about Marsha Linehan's life. And I just became a huge DBT nerd. So now I'm also doing RO DBT because I think it's really good to have a full, broad skill set. My thing that I'm the most passionate about is working with women and gender nonconforming people who have trauma. And so often we want to go right into that trauma work right away. And I think that stabilizing group therapy, and the research proves it, can really be helpful when people are struggling and trying to figuring out how to move forward. I've always felt, even from my second day of internship, I joined the DBT team on my second day of internship, and I had access to people who are now clinical directors, and even the senior vice president of clinical were on the DBT team at that time. I had access to those people, and I had the ability to get to know them as human beings and learn from them and have them ask me questions about my experience and what I had learned from my own experience as a human. And that is the thing that I think I've taken away as a leader. I always want to work with the interns that come through here because I think they really poured into me and invested in me, and I want to do the same thing for other people. The piece of advice I would give a newer clinician is probably don't be afraid to ask. Ask questions. Get it wrong. Let yourself look like you don't know what you're talking about, because that can be really transformative, not only for you as a clinician and a human being, but also for your client. We can model what it looks like to say, I don't know, but I know somebody who does, and I'll figure it out. We can figure this out together. Or I'm not the expert on this. I don't know how it feels to be in your life, your body, your world. So let's have you be the expert and you tell me. I'm not entirely sure what this looks like for you, but we can figure it out together. Knowing that there are resources, and if I let it get in my way that I'm afraid to ask questions or afraid to look silly or to be wrong, then I'm not learning. And so having that flexible mindset, I think, is the number one thing that I have learned and that has served me since I started here as an intern. I forgot completely, but I have a big training coming up that I'm excited about. I'm going to start the coursework to become a somatic experiencing practitioner. And so this is a 3-year program, but I'm doing the first round of that training in October through the Emerging Leaders Fellowship, getting that opportunity to start that training program, and the rest of it's on me, but I'm going to be able to actually start to get in there and have another big tool in my toolkit that I'm really excited about, being able to talk about getting into my body and how that mind and body connection really facilitate healing. Very excited about this new EHR system that we're going to get. When I heard about it at the town hall, I was like, yes, let's do it. Getting all of our patient records in one place, having a portal for patients to be able to message us, being able to have our calendars sync up. I'm so excited about it. Like, I know that seems like such a nerdy thing, but I think it's going to make things a lot easier for everybody. It's going to make things easier for our front office. It's going to make things easier for the clinicians. And ultimately, the thing that's the most important is it's going to make things easier for our clients. Change isn't easy for anybody, not even for therapists. And I think we got to practice what we preach. We've got to, walk that road. I'm going to be okay with learning how to change and adapt to these things, because that's what I'm here to help other people learn.